Good afternoon. As always, I'll start with a synopsis or an outline of some things relative to our last performance, and I want to talk about a few specific things because as I understand some of it's been bounced around since our last performance. First, regarding Ben's health, what transpired during halftime and subsequently after that. Ben sustained an injury at the end of the first half. We went in at halftime. He needed to be evaluated. An X-ray was a part of that. Getting the X-ray executed was not a fluid thing. Oftentimes it's not a fluid thing, to be honest with you. New and unfamiliar venues and things of that nature. Ben was accompanied by our medical staff and Kevin Colbert, our general manager. They went through their procedures. Even after getting the X-ray, we didn't have great clarity, to be honest with you. Wasn't able to read the X-ray to our satisfaction. It was probably a dated piece of equipment or what have you. So we never really fully had a complete understanding of specifically what the injury was at the stadium site. Nevertheless, our medical staff, doing their due diligence, treated him to the best of their abilities and medicated him, and then we took the group back out onto the field not knowing whether he was going to be available or not. We've been in this situation before. Obviously, Ben has been our quarterback for a long time. Really, we followed a very similar template that transpired in Cincinnati in the playoffs, I think, in 2015. Because of the lack of information, we thought that the best thing to do, the most prudent thing to do, would to be only to make Ben available in an emergency-like situation was exactly what we did in Cincinnati several years ago because of lack of information. Obviously, he's got to be a willing participant in that. The doctors have got to get to a level of comfort, but acknowledging that level of comfort is including a lack of clarity in some instances because the X-ray was not clearly readable. So Ben has been with us a long time. He does a great job of communicating. We all do. You know, we got continuity in that regard. We did a great job of communicating throughout. Once they came back out on the field, I continued to communicate with Ben to see the effectiveness of the medication, to see how he felt he would be able to perform in terms of function and be able to do the things that he needed to do. We continued to talk about it. While talking about that, obviously the game is going on, and we said that because of lack of information in the situation not being a comfortable or ideal one, we would only reinsert him into the game if we felt it was necessary. As the game unfolded, obviously it became necessary. We did. We really appreciate what he was able to do and the effort that he was able to provide and those around him to give us a chance. Obviously, it didn't end in the way that we would like, but that's just kind of an outline of what transpired. And again, like I mentioned, it's really the same template that transpired in Cincinnati. When we had him getting X-rays and being evaluated in unfamiliar territory. Kevin Colbert was included in that dialogue as well, and we came to the same subsequent decisions for the same reasons. When you don't have a lack of information, you better move prudently. We did, but we also are committed to playing to win. This is professional football. When we got to that point in the road, we decided to reinsert him into the game, and he performed and gave us a extraordinary effort. So that's the outline regarding Ben, his health, what transpired at the stadium, why and when we reinserted him into the game. Another thing I think that I didn't talk quite a bit about after the game was Chris Boswell, you know, and that question has been brought up repeatedly and appropriately so. Here's our position as we push into this next opportunity. We acknowledge that Chris has struggled. We acknowledge that Chris has struggled to find consistent footing. We're willing to explore options that gives us the very best chances of that ball going through the uprights this weekend. That being said, those options include Chris. You know, this time of year, we're cognizant of what's available. And, you know, the prudent approach is to include Chris in those options. And that's what we intend to do. You know, his performance merits us turning stones over and looking at our options. But the easy decision for us to do is to assign blame or to shoot a hostage or to do things of that nature regarding Boz. That's not our intention. We want to do what's right for our football team. What's right for our football team is to ensure that we give ourselves the very best chance of winning and that ball going through the upright this weekend. So we're looking at all options available to us, including Chris. That has been displayed to him. He'll be given an opportunity to play his way into this thing this weekend, and we'll go as I just outlined. That is the approach that we intend to take. Other things regarding the game, obviously it's really disappointing how the game ended, particularly because we weren't able to stand up in that moment defensively, and really that's the second time in 2 weeks we weren't able to stand up in that moment. We accept responsibility for that. We also acknowledge that, Oakland made some plays, and, we'd be less than professional if we didn't tip our caps to Derek Carr and that group, man. He made some really, really tough combative throws, and they made some tough combative catches. We got to do a better job of finishing things at the point of attack. We were in position on a lot of those plays. They made the combat catches, and we didn't. And so there's obviously consequences of that. The consequences are we lost the game, but there's also reasons why that happened, and we got to look at all reasons. What we're doing as coaches in terms of putting those guys in position to take advantage of those opportunities, who we're utilizing, and the detail in which they're working. And so very much like the kicking scenario, we're open to all possibilities as we stand here this afternoon in preparation in an effort to change that outcome. One thing that we're not going to do is we're not going to hope and wish. We're not going to go through our processes in the manner in which we have and just hope that the outcome changes. It doesn't necessarily mean that we're going to do things dramatically different, but we're not going to sit on our hands. We're not going to hope. That's not what professionals do, particularly ones in the position that we're in. We're going to actively seek victory. We're going to actively seek the change necessary to change the outcome of a few plays, which will thus change the outcome of a game. That's life for us. The health and safety of some of these guys as we push into this week. Ben, obviously we got him evaluated when we got back. He has rib or several rib contusions. That'll be addressed throughout the week. We anticipate him being available to us. Pain management through the week will probably be the storyline in terms of what he's able to do from a physical preparation standpoint. But again, Ben has played a lot of football. So, and we've been in this situation with him a lot. So we'll walk that tightrope and go into the stadium with no excuses there. Some of the older injuries, James Conner with his ankle, man, he had a really, impressive week last week. We'll see what this week holds, and obviously his availability will be based on first his health and then his preparedness. So we'll see his availability throughout the course of the week and let his availability and then the quality of that be our guide. Same for Marcus Gilbert. Hadn't checked in with him. I think he's downstairs as we speak, getting a workout in today. Some other bumps and bruises associated with play. We'll sort through those things as we get into our work week. Now as we prepare for New England and looking at the challenges that they provide, and obviously they provide significant ones. They're a well-coached and well-balanced team in all three phases. We've been in situations with them in the past. We'll be able to glean some learning experiences off of some of those situations, but some of the matchups and elements of play are new and exclusive to 2018 for them and for us. Obviously, minimizing Brady and his arsenal of weapons is central to the discussion. Gronk has missed some time this year, but he's finding his rhythm. He's been playing here for the last several weeks, had a big game this past week. The matchup issue that he is for everyone globally, and he is and has been for us in the past. We'll be thoughtful about putting together a plan to minimize him and his impact on the game. They got some new components in the passing game that's new to them, but we've played against in the past. Guys like Josh Gordon, who's a big-time outside receiving threat. Patterson, who's shown some versatility, not only as a receiver, but as a running back and in the return game. Obviously, he's got some known components like Edelman, a guy who's adept at dominating on the interior element of play and reverses and things of that nature, is really talented. Devlin has emerged of late as a short yardage component of play for them. They're talented fullback. Mentioned him in the past. Hadn't mentioned him a lot as a ball carrier. Of late, he's become particularly a situational ball carrier and a component for them. They do a good job collectively up front, man, of getting hats on hats and blocking people in the run game and in the passing game. And obviously, Brady does the rest. On the defensive side of the ball, man, they got a veteran-laden secondary that very rarely is out of place, is very good with their eyes and very good at the ball. They do a good job of playing the ball when they're in position to play the ball. They do a great job of not panicking when they're not in position of playing the ball and playing through the receiver's hands, and oftentimes they're successful when they employ that technique. Yards in the interior portions of the field with the myriad of man concepts and robber systems that they employ are difficult at times. They've done that for a number of years, coupled with a good collective rush. They're getting quality rushes from a number of people, linebackers included. They've always had that element in their attack. They're very ball aware. They hunt the ball, be it in the run or in the pass. It produces turnovers for them and creates opportunities for them. And they're sound in the kicking game. I mentioned Patterson earlier. He's a dynamic return man, but they also have guys like Ebner and Slater, who are, Slater's a wide receiver. Ebner is a defensive back, but boy, they've, earned their stripes in the National Football League for an extended period of time for the dominant performances they've been able to provide in teams. And those guys are building blocks along with others. Devlin, the fullback that I mentioned earlier, well-rounded group. We're licking our wounds as we should when you're not unsuccessful in this business, but not a lot of time for that. We understand that as well. Sunday's coming, man. We're excited about an opportunity to compete and get this negative taste out of our mouths, as I'm sure New England is. They're coming off of a bitter, disappointing game. So it's going to be high stakes, obviously. It's going to be a big-time atmosphere. Excited about it and look forward, more importantly, to this week's preparation for the opportunity. A lot of work to be done. Questions?
Coach, you've always talked about this time of year you need to be a team on the rise. You're obviously a team on the decline with the 3 losses. You're suggesting there has to be changes made to address the problems. Defensively, you're not getting turnovers, you're giving up leads. Is this a schematic problem or is it a personnel problem, the way you're looking at it?
It's all of us. You don't fail and then, conveniently pinpoint one particular area. This is a very complex game because it's a complex game, because of the number of people involved. And whenever you're talking about particularly consistent failures like we've had in recent weeks, it's usually a multitude of things. We better look at the schematics. We better look at who we're asking to do what, and we better look at the detail in which they're doing it. And so it's all of the above, and that's our intentions. We're open to change. We're going to make discussions regarding change, but I don't want you to lead you to believe that these changes are going to be dramatic and maybe even noticeable to the naked eye. But in our world, very much necessary and very much significant. Oftentimes, you make very subtle changes and they have very significant outcomes. And so we're going to look at all the things that I mentioned.
Mike, will you be holding kicking tryouts this week?
Yes, we will. But also, like I mentioned, Boz is a viable option as well.
How's something like that work, Mike? You did it just today or tomorrow morning, bring some guys together?
Yeah, I'm not going to get into the details, but I feel comfortable that I gave you guys enough insight in terms of what we intend to do and why we're doing it and why we're taking the approach that we're taking. The minutia, when people are coming in, who they are, I'm not getting into that in this forum.
How long has this been in the back of your mind? That did you go into before last week's game that if something else materialized that maybe you're going to go in this direction? Because most of the year
I came to this decision and we came to this decision, in the last 24 hours or so. And it's simple as that.
When you have tryouts for kickers, you judge them based on what they're doing at that tryout? You have to have the past, what they've done in the past?
In part, yes. Part of who you bring in is based on what they've done in the past.
Isn't it overreacting, though? I mean, with Boswell, it was a horrible kick, but it was his plant foot. Was it his shoe or was it his mechanics?
I'm not getting into the minutia. I'm just getting into the fact that we need the ball to go through the uprights. He needs the ball to go through the uprights, and it hadn't been consistently. And I've outlined that for you guys in great detail, and I've told you our intentions, and really that's all I have to say on the matter.
You said you weren't able to get the x-rays, I'm assuming, done in time. At what point did you get the result of the x-rays? Before you left the locker room or during the third quarter? Do you remember?
We got the result of the x-rays. They weren't readable.
But, you got the results during halftime, though?
No, it was into the third quarter by the time we got through the logistics of actually even getting the x-rays, and then they were less than readable.
Did Ben voice anything to you on how he felt or his opinions on the matter?
We had a lot of communication, and we always do when we're dealing with matters related to his health and participation, and it was ongoing, and that's why I said what I said after the game, that he and I had discussions prior to him returning to the game about him potentially returning to the game.
Were the doctors concerned about a broken rib which could then puncture a lung? Is that what they were worried about?
They were worried about a myriad of things. Obviously, when you don't have clarity in terms of specifically what it is you're dealing with, sure, there are a number of concerns that slows down the process and makes you have extended conversations and things of that nature, and that's why we took the course of action that we took.
Mike, can you clarify when you said after the game that you could have brought Ben back a few series earlier, but you said today that you were only going to use him in emergency situations? Is that saying he was cleared a few series earlier and you decided only to use him in emergency situations?
Again, guys, you know, we didn't have a lot of information, so dialogue was a part of the discussion, how he felt, whether or not the treatment they provided him, in addition to the x-ray, was going to be effective. So there were several conversations throughout the course of the third quarter or whatever when he came back to the sideline after getting done what he needed to get done, and communication was a part of the ultimate decision to put him back into the game, or whether or not we were even going to consider putting him back into the game. And really, guys, I've tried to be as transparent as I can be. I'm not going to get into any more of the minutia. I know you guys got a job to do. I wanted to be as completely transparent as I could. I was not interested in discussing it after the game because I'm not a comfort seeker. I don't want to blame others. I don't care about the equipment, the speed in which the thing transpired, whether or not we were able to read it. You know, that was the same equipment for both teams, et cetera, et cetera. So I said very little after the game. But obviously this thing has had legs and it has grown, and we want to minimize the senseless distractions. So I'm being very transparent with you in terms of what transpired, how, and why.
A lot of the people seem to have, the reason why it seems to have legs is a lot of people may not understand what you are defining as an emergency situation, is that only losing, and I think people also were trying to figure out what you meant by rhythm and flow of the offense when Josh was the quarterback and you guys hadn't had any points.
If we felt like we needed Ben to win the game, we were willing to do it.
What about the rhythm and flow quote that you had after about Josh?
You know, whether or not we were ahead or behind had nothing to do with whether or not we inserted him into the game, and that was my reference in terms of rhythm or flow. It doesn't necessarily mean we had to be behind to reinsert him. It just meant were we fluidly moving the ball? Did we have a chance to put ourselves in position to win?
So when Ben said today on his show that the plan was to put him in regardless of whether or not Oakland had scored on their second to last drive, that was the case?
He and I had a conversation. It got to the point where we said regardless of what transpired, he was going in on the next series, and he did.
Mike, is there any sort of league standard for the quality of the x-ray equipment that you're aware of?
I'm not getting into that. That's why I didn't get into it after the game.
Formal complaint filed on behalf of the state?
There will be none.
That was the same x-ray machine that the Raiders would have used if somebody was hurt?
And again, I'm not getting into that.
Mike, that both teams had the same.
I assume that.
Mike, there was a situation in the third quarter, I believe, where they hit a pass down the middle of the carrier and sprinted to the line of scrimmage, obviously thinking that it may have been something that might not have been a good catch. Did you think about throwing a challenge flag on that play?
I did, but I chose not to. I thought he caught the ball, so did our guys on the field.
Mike, you have a global issue like Gronkowski, he's got that matchup. Do you have to play different techniques? Is there something that you have to alter? It's not the standard.
I think when you play a guy like him, it's going to take multiple people and multiple techniques. So, yes.
Have you seen anything work over the years?
You know, yes, but, you know, we haven't been a part of it. You know, we're looking to be.
We've seen you address guys personally after games. Did you say anything in particular to Sean Davis after that New England game last year? With respect to his covering on stretch?
I don't remember. I'm sure I did. Due diligence and reviewing performance is a part of what we do, but I can't say that I remember any specific conversation as I stand here today.
What needs to change with the running game?
You know, I don't know, man. Obviously, who we're utilizing is an element of it. Game circumstance obviously is an element of it. You know, we're on a losing streak here, and we haven't been running the ball effectively, so obviously we better analyze that as well among some of the other things that we've discussed here.
Mike, I know after Jacksonville, we asked you about using timeouts on defense versus offense in a roughly 2-minute situation.
Yeah.
You had two, actually, you had two in this case that you could have used, one that you used before fourth down. But you would all think about using one after they hit the big play down the field or following their first run.
I did, but to be quite honest with you, I chose not to. I was more interested in stopping them. Particularly, I knew if I didn't utilize a timeout that the run game would be an element of the sequence, and I felt comfortable about our ability to stop the run. And so I was more interested in winning the sequence and less interested in the number of timeouts I was holding if we were to lose the sequence. We had our chances. We got them to fourth down and 6. We utilized the timeout to put ourselves in the very best call and have discussions that we thought were pertinent to win in that circumstance. We liked the people that we had on the field. We liked the call that we had. They executed better than we did. And so such is life. I like to hold a timeout so we can utilize the full field. If we get in those circumstances, I was able to hold one. They scored. We got the ball back. When you have that timeout, you're able to utilize all components of the field. I think that helps you in those dire circumstances. It makes them have to defend the interior part of the field, et cetera. It gave us a chance.
Mike, when you have a game where you're coming off a bitter taste of a defeat, and so is your opponent, how much does that factor into the game?
I don't know, you know, particularly as it pertains to the taste in their mouth. You know, I can speak about the taste in our mouth. We don't like it.
You know, they're probably feeling the same way in preparation for you.
Again, I can't speak or speculate regarding their agenda or how they feel. You know, our focus is us, and appropriately so.
Coach, how do you feel about the overall health of your team? You know, with a few guys being banged up like Foster.
You know, I'm comfortable with that. I don't overanalyze that. I really don't. I just look at who's available to us and then focus on the utilization of those people, acknowledging that injury is a part of this thing, not only for us but for everyone. So from that standpoint, man, we're all on a level playing field. We all have critical decisions to make week in and week out about those people that are available to us, and really the allocation of reps of those that are, you know, suspect and et cetera, et cetera. I think that's just one of the components of this thing that makes it fun and challenging.
If Marcus Gilbert were to be available this week, does he automatically go back into the starting lineup?
Again, it depends on what he looks like. First, he's got to get medical clearance, and then we base it on his performance. So it's availability and performance. And that's not exclusive to him. It's the same for James Conner or anybody else that we've kind of talked about in this capacity. That's why I'm thoughtful about the words that I say every week. We'll let his availability be our guide, and then the quality of his work within that availability.
What did the latest evaluation on James's ankle tell you about his potential availability?
Again, I don't have that information. He's still in the building today. I'm sure he's got a big workup today and in preparation for what maybe lies ahead tomorrow.
Mike, do the line, given the different styles of the running backs, that they all have their own kind of different dynamic of the way they run it, does the line have to block differently for each guy, or do you just expect them to block the same and that the performance dictates everything?
I think there's subtle nuances that are based on the ball carrier, but that's nothing new. I think that's always ongoing, whether your featured runner's available to you or not, and you're just simply giving him a break and somebody else is coming in. I just think that, you know, the plays that we call, we do it with the acknowledgement of who's at running back, and sometimes it's schematic specific. It's the plays themselves that you call to highlight specific talents of a runner. And then there's the, you know, adjustments, if you will, of the run styles that probably include the suggestion that you included there.
Mike, in assessing the run game Sunday, how did the line perform? And in conjunction with that, were the two running backs a bit tentative getting to the hole?
You know, we didn't do a good enough job at sustaining blocks. I thought our footing was an issue in that at times, not only in terms of the line, but the runners. Such is life. You know, footing is going to be an issue from time to time when you play on natural surfaces outside. We got to be better.
Mike, you take several different players take several different pairs of shoes and adjust according to the ground.
Yes.
Were you satisfied that they had the correct shoes on Sunday?
Yes. But again, we still slipped in some instances, you know?
Mike, you mentioned the difference of the running game, whether it's with a featured back or not. Would you classify it as easier to call a game if you have a James Conner or a featured back that you had most of the year than not? Okay.
Yeah, if you got your starter, it's probably easier to call it. Yeah.
Anyone else?
Coach, what do you make of the drumbeat of criticism from former Steelers like Rocky Blyer, who said he's done with the team, quote unquote? How frustrating is it to hear that and know you got a job to do?
You know, I didn't know that. You know, those guys are entitled to opinion, man. They care and care deeply, man. We appreciate and respect the fact that they care and care deeply. Trust that we're equally or more disappointed than Rocky. But we get an opportunity to do something about it. So that's where we focus our energies. And we, meaning those of us that play and those of us that coach and that are in this thing day to day right now, we got a big week ahead of us in terms of the work that we do. Forget how we feel.
Anyone else? All right.
Thank you.